Hachette Audio presents Playing Dirty, written by Tiffany Snow, read by Laura Hopatcong. This book is dedicated to Jill for digitally holding my hand as we slogged through together, one day at a time. You're awesome, babe. Prologue. Parker watched as Ryker's truck rolled to a stop in front of the building. Sage emerged from the entry, scurrying across the sidewalk barefoot before climbing into the passenger seat. The truck pulled away from the curb, lost to sight in moments down the avenue. He'd heard the door close when she'd gone, leaving him alone in his bed without so much as a word of farewell. Not that he could blame her. She'd nearly died tonight, had been moments away. Victor hadn't cared if he killed her or not. He put a fucking plastic bag over her head and slowly suffocated her. Parker's hands balled into fists, just remembering how she'd looked when he'd pulled her out of that car. Deathly pale, her mouth bleeding from where Victor had hit her, mascara smeared by the tears soaking her cheeks. Sage deserved better. Far better. But Parker needed her in his life, in his job. No matter how tempting it was to want to slip into a more personal relationship with her, he knew he couldn't. Relationships never lasted, and just when you thought you'd found the forever kind of love, it would end. And when it was over, she'd be gone. Permanently. Better to let her go with Ryker, a man who'd wanted a wife and kids, a family, for as long as Parker had known him, which had been a hell of a long time. Ryker had fascinated Parker when they were kids, so unlike the wealthy cookie-cutter kids that had gone to private school, the poor kid from the south side of town had been a welcome breath of fresh air. Nearly 2 decades had passed since they'd first met, but some things never changed. Maybe it had been because he'd been raised by a single mom, but Ryker had talked of nothing else but wanting to fall in love and get married. Especially when they'd been deployed and the future sometimes looked grim. Why he wasn't married already, Parker had no idea. Unless he still wasn't over Natalie. Natalie, the woman who'd torn the two of them apart. Obviously Ryker still blamed Parker for her suicide, his anger and loathing as fresh now as the day they'd found out she'd driven her car into the river. Maybe he'd marry Sage. That thought was like a kick in the gut. Unable to stand the bedroom anymore and unwilling to climb beneath the sheets, still warm.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?